And I'm going to be speaking about experience with regard to the research methodology class or seminars at the undergraduate level. So basically, this is the agenda. I'm going to be speaking about quantitative research design, online survey design, research questions and hypotheses, research instrument design and codebook, pilot study, main study, data analysis, and some tools, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence like ChatGPT, among others, along with the major types of statistics, namely descriptive and inferential statistics, and finally, data interpretation and reporting. So this presentation is going to be a little bit practical, so that I need just to move to the browser and share the screen with you. I hope you can see it. So basically, for the seminars, I don't follow this linear approach with students, like you start with the review of literature, methodology, results, discussion, conclusions, recommendations, among others. But we just start directly from defining research problem, having the research questions and hypotheses, and then we start designing the research instruments. And the case that we work on the most is the questionnaire. So we start, I'm sharing with you this questionnaire via Google Forms. So we just design it together. So we develop this questionnaire. And I also tell students that you can actually adopt the questionnaire from studies that have used the questionnaire before in other settings. So students become aware of the different question formats, etc. Sometimes they suggest the questions based on their experience. Like here, this questionnaire tests the motivation of students, like intrinsic, extrinsic motivation, like which one is more predominant, along with other variables like achievement. We want to see whether or not there is any statistically significant correlation between motivation on the one hand, regardless of its type, whether it's extrinsic or intrinsic, and achievement on the other hand. And here we designed two Likert scales, and there are like three Likert scales because motivation is divided into two subdimensions. And we come up also with this so-called achievement scale based on the suggestions of students, of course. Then we did the pilot study of this survey using the Google Forms. So students actually get to know how to design the questionnaire, like not only theoretically, but also in practice. This is what can just make things clear. Instead of lecturing about the different formats of questions, you can actually use these hands-on experience rather, and you can make the lectures in terms of webinars or rather workshops, so to speak. So anyways, once we come up with the questionnaire, I just show them how they can share the questionnaire, how they can make the link show, and how to share this questionnaire. And here we start learning about the different sampling procedures, the two types of sampling, like the probability sampling procedures and the non-probability sampling procedures. And I told them, like, whenever we have online surveys and you share that with your classmates on Facebook or WhatsApp, this means that you are using mostly voluntary sampling. This means that the respondents can volunteer to answer your questionnaire or can refrain from doing this. And this is non-probability sampling procedure. And at this stage, I teach students about the different types of sampling procedures. And I told them also that you can use different types of sampling at the same time. Like you can use voluntary sampling, and at the same time you can use snowball sampling by giving that message that says, if you know someone else from your class, you can share with them the questionnaire. So this is just a way how we proceed with data collection. And then we go for the pilot study. And there I show them the importance of the pilot study and why we should just check everything before we conduct the main study for any educational research project. because we need to test reliability. We need to have a sample size of 10 to 15 students or respondents. Then we can test the reliability. The validity may not be tested using the exploratory or confirmatory factor analysis because the sample size is low, but sometimes it can give you some of the values like the Bartlett's test of sphericity, among others. But I just tell students, like, you don't need to bother about all of the technicalities. What you need to do is just to see how the process is done. So the purpose behind those sessions is mostly to raise awareness of the quantitative research methodology. Okay. Then so the students have just complete the answers like this, and then we start analyzing those answers. So we just get them on Google spreadsheet like this, and we download the document. And at this stage where I have to teach them about coding and the importance of having a code book. And here I teach them about the so-called variables, the dependent variable or variables, the independent variables, the mediators, the moderators, because they actually have to see what we mean by variables in questionnaires. Otherwise, they will just talk about them in their theoretical framework, but when it comes to designing research instruments and collecting data, they will think those questions in the questionnaire are just questions like that. They won't have this awareness to know that they are actually variables, and they are of different types. They can be independent, dependent variables, or in terms of levels of measurement. When we start the analysis, again, I teach them about the different levels of measurement, like nominal variables, ordinal, interval, and ratio variables. Okay, so they have to see this in practice. So at this stage, I said I'm teaching them about the code book. So I showed them some tricks how to code the data. So basically, I can just show you the file. So this is the downloaded version of. So basically at this stage, we go about the coding. Like here, we need to have a code book, like the questionnaire that has already been designed. And then what we can do is just, we are going to replace those labels by numbers, because I told them that SPSS or other programs do not understand what male or female means. So they just understand numbers, or strongly agree, strongly disagree. So those labels should be replaced with numbers, because as if you were speaking to you're speaking to a machine. So you should speak to the machine in its language, which is that of numbers. Then they start making sense of why we do the coding and why coding is important. And again, when we go into details, like here, instead of replacing all of the labels separately, we can just go to find, replace, and we're just going to start replacing, for example, male with, for instance, 2 or 1, let's say. And for options, let's say match case, because male is like part of the word of female. So basically, if you just don't click match case, it will be inserted within. So anyways, replace all. And here we code everything in 1 or 2 clicks. Then for the female variable, the same can be done. So we simply put, for example, female, and then we replace it with 2 and replace all. All right. And then we can, here I can explain to them the process of data cleaning. So here, like this value, it needs to be cleaned. So we just want to have numbers, because age should be, let's say, consistent this way. So at this stage, I explain to them the importance of data cleaning. Then we proceed like this. So it's like hands-on experience, not only teaching them about theories. And even when we designed the questionnaire, I told them like the different social demographic variables, like sex, like age, like semester, like student status, are going to be correlated or tested along with the other variables, like motivation, like achievement, etc. Like in terms of female, male, we want to see whether or not there is any statistically significant difference between the two. That's why we are asking them about their sex. And then we use age to see whether or not there is any statistically significant positive or even negative correlation between age and motivation. Like, do you think that all students may be more motivated or less motivated, or vice versa? Like, who is going to be more motivated to learn English the most? And then for the semester, we can compare the different semesters, like the fourth semester, the sixth semester, and the second semester. Those semesters fall in the second half of the year. That's why they are in these numbers. And then for student status, full-time, part-time, we also want to compare whether or not there is any statistically significant difference. And I just emphasize the importance of research. I told them, like, you can hypothesize that there is difference. Like, you can say that female students are better in terms of learning English, but we need to test this. That's why we need to do research. We just don't keep speaking like that. And then they start becoming more aware why we need to do this. It's not only we can say, well, we have this impression that female students are high achievers compared to male students. So anyways, then we go for like this. So it's like doing the work and at the same time explaining and proceeding with the course. So once we finish the coding, the next step is to import this into spaces. So for those, let's say, questions that have more or less the same answers, they can be just selected at once and they can be coded using this find and replace functionality. Then the next step is to import the data into spaces, and here I take the opportunity to explain to them what spaces means, like the statistical package for social sciences, and how it is used also in quantitative research, etc. And also the fact that there are many, let's say, programs apart from spaces. But spaces is just a case study because it is mostly used by researchers in education and also in other fields. Here I just explained to them this window. It's like the Excel window. You just have columns and rows. You put variables. These are the questions in the questionnaire, but you just import the data from Excel to spaces. So once they import the data there, and the next step is going to be that of let's say labeling. Okay, like for this variable, it will be labeled, for example, as and then for values, we just can assign, for example, 1 for male and then 2 for female, to see that we need to do this procedure or follow this procedure again. So that's why we need to have the code book. All right, so once we finish, we start running the other tests like descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. And here we start going to this analyze or menu, and then we start running the descriptive statistics. And here like we check the variables and we look at the statistics. Like here I just use this window to explain to them the two major types of descriptive statistics, like central tendencies, mean, median, mode, and the dispersion measures like standard deviation as the most common dispersion measure. We'll just explain this theoretically, and then we get them in practice. And from here also, like for the measure, I explain to them the different types of variables, like scale, ordinal, nominal. Like nominal variables or categorical variables, they are like in groups. Ordinal, they can be ordered, let's say first, second, third, and scale, it can be interval or ratio scale. But the most important thing is that you have just one continuous number, like age, not give the respondents age in terms of groups, but how old are you, and they should just put their age, like 21, 22, 23, etc. And this is like a continuous scale. So anyways, these start making sense, and of course they will have the notes that they can use to revise or to revisit, so that they can remember these concepts, because the course is full of terminology. And so then once we finish the descriptive statistics, we run that. Actually, we get the reports, we report them, we see how to clean the data, etc. Then we go to the next stage, in which we perform inferential statistics. We use hypotheses at this stage. So it is at this stage when I explain to them and the types of hypotheses, like the null hypothesis, the alternative hypothesis, the directional hypothesis, the non-directional hypothesis, among other. The null hypothesis assumes that there is no statistically significant difference between male and female students in terms of motivation and achievement. And then this can be tested using the independent samples t-test as a parametric test, or the other test, that is the non-parametric test, that is called the man with new test. But just don't be afraid of these details. I tell them, like, so you just know that, for example, you just remember when we have two groups, like in case of male and female or non-binary or etc. So we just, the most important thing is that we have two groups. Okay, you can go for compare means, or you can go for independent samples t-test. Then we have, I just showed them how to do the independent samples t-test and how to interpret it and use it to back up the hypothesis. And they will start seeing the importance of hypothesis and why we should have the hypothesis, because I told them you just don't go there and you start writing. You need to do tests and then report the results that you are doing. So it's not, I'm just going to come and tell you, write to me article about this or do this research. You need to do something before you start reporting, and then they start being aware that they actually need to do the test, or at least become aware of them, report them, because there is not only quantitative research or doing the survey itself, but also they can use systematic literature review. And when they are doing systematic literature review, they are just going to encounter the tests that I explained to them, and they become aware of them. Like there is high likelihood that they will understand those studies, because if they are reviewing, for example, other databases like let's say Scopus database, and they are using, let's say, keywords, they will encounter, like last time we talked about artificial intelligence rather in education, and we keep looking for studies. And those studies mention those tests, like independent samples t-test, like paired samples t-test, correlation, regression. So that's why I don't use the linear approach, like I start teaching them the review of literature first. No, because when they are doing research and they are doing the literature review, they are going to encounter statistics. And that thing is very difficult for them at that stage. That's why research methodology is not like a linear process. So it is non-linear. So here, like for this abstract, you can find the frequencies, percentages, some basic descriptive statistics, but also there are some abstracts that use, let's say, advanced statistics like regression, etc., and even they report it in terms of the methodology. All right, so this is why we start with the teaching students this the methodology part at the beginning. Then once they start doing the research, they like doing the analysis, then we move to writing the report. And it is at that stage again when I'm going to start teaching them skills that have to do with Microsoft Office Word, and how to structure the essays or the reports in terms of introduction with the blueprint or thesis statement. We have other paragraphs with topic sentence, with supporting details, with concluding sentences, etc. And punctuation issues, grammar issues, spelling issues, let's say. So you just integrate everything while doing the research. All right, but you do that practically to make students actually see how things done, because they now at Mohammed V University we are developing let's say course descriptions, and there is a course that I'm working on that is called digital skills in research. Because when they are doing research, it's not like as we used to do. We used to just take printed papers and we start writing manuscripts using hands, etc. But nowadays, I think everything is in digital form. They need to type, and by definition, they need to be aware of the digital skills, like how to use Microsoft Office Word, how to use such tools, etc. Because we don't assume that students just come and know about, let's say, Microsoft Office Word and how to indent paragraphs, how to, let's say, structure references in terms of EPA, etc. I hope that I still have, let's say, some time. I'm going just to. So the last part I would just like to speak about when it comes to writing, because with the advancement in terms of artificial intelligence, students started using such tools like ChatGPT, and that's why the course of advanced writing will become, let's say, nonsense. Like when you assign essays or writing tasks for students, they will just go to, let's say, ChatGPT. I'm just going to show you this in practice and write an essay, for example, about AI, or write even a 5 paragraph essay. So you would just give the ChatGPT a prompt, or the prompt that I give them on the assignment, and they will just generate the output. So let me just refresh this. So you see, ChatGPT will just generate essays for them with, like, let's say, the introduction, with the paragraphs, with the topic sentence, and you will be impressed. Like during the first days of the ChatGPT, I met a professor, and he told me, like, I'm teaching second semester classes, and they are really good in terms of writing. I taught them last year. I know their writing skills. And then we started discussing, do you know that there is a tool that is called ChatGPT? And he told me, no, I don't know it. I told him that they may be using ChatGPT because their essays will show mistakes, will show typos. It cannot be perfect 100%. Otherwise, why are they studying English there? So it doesn't make any sense. We expect to find mistakes, etc., for their essays. And there is a way to detect whether the content has been generated by ChatGPT or not. You can just take that essay and paste it to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, like, have you generated this essay to anyone? Like, is this by you? All right. And then put it between quotation marks. Yes, that paragraph was generated by me, ChatGPT, a language model trained by OpenAI. You see, here you detect that the student used ChatGPT to come up with the essay. So we don't have those plagiarism detection tools. Now we need to have AI detection tools. And I guess all the other companies, this is like recommendation to start thinking of how to detect, let's say, ChatGPT content or artificial intelligence content, and distinguish it from human-like or human-generated content, so to speak. Anyways, so this is just a way to detect this. But I start teaching them how to use, let's say, ChatGPT or other artificial intelligence functionalities ethically, like how you can learn from it. Like you can let ChatGPT teach you about the 5 paragraph essay, for example, or sometimes, but you need to be aware of what the 5 paragraph essay, like, till you become aware, and then if that becomes just something that is of labor to you, you can give it to it. But at this stage, you need to learn, because sometimes the artificial intelligence provides us with mistakes and errors. So otherwise, we don't need to keep thinking, and we stop innovating at this stage. All right, so teach me about 5 paragraph essay, and then ChatGPT will just generate everything, like the definition of the 5 paragraph essay, the introduction, the body paragraphs, the conclusion, among others. It can even give you samples, and you can use the samples generated by ChatGPT for the product approach to writing, and that's going to be useful. So, but if you just go and generate everything and you give it to me as an assignment, that's going to be a 0, a failure grade. So thank you. Yeah, so I'm just concluding. So in general, this is the methodology I'm using to explain or teach research seminars on quantitative research in language education. I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback, and thank you so much.